Jackie Chan insulted by presenter at awards show, but what happens next will leave you speechless. It's the night of the Global Cinema Awards, a dazzling spectacle filled with A-list celebrities, gold trophies, and the kind of glamour you can only dream of. The red carpet is a parade of the world's biggest stars, flashing lights, and eager fans. But what no one expects, what no one could have predicted, is that one of the most legendary names in film, Jackie Chan, will become the center of a scandalous moment that sends shockwaves through the entertainment world. As Jackie steps onto the stage, the tension is already in the air. The host, a famous TV personality known for their sharp humor, grins, ready to make the night unforgettable. But little does Jackie know, tonight he's not just receiving an award. Tonight he's about to face a deep-seated insult that could alter everything. It's a moment that will test his character, his patience, and ultimately, his legacy. You won't believe what happens next. Stick with us as the unexpected twist of this night will leave you stunned. The atmosphere in the room was electric. The Global Cinema Awards had always been one of the most anticipated events of the year. Celebrities from every corner of the globe gathered to celebrate their achievements, and the red carpet was an ongoing spectacle. Cameras flashed relentlessly as the world's brightest stars paraded in their finest attire, each more dazzling than the last. The event had an air of sophistication, a sense that this was the pinnacle of success in the entertainment industry. Among those attending, there was one name that everyone eagerly awaited: Jackie Chan. The iconic actor and martial artist had worked tirelessly for decades to bring not just action-packed films to the screen, but also a sense of heart and humor that transcended language barriers. His films had united cultures, entertained millions, and made him a household name worldwide. This night, however, was not about the past. It was about honoring his legacy and giving him the Lifetime Achievement Award for his exceptional contribution to global cinema. As Jackie arrived at the venue, the room went quiet for a brief moment. It was as if the crowd was holding its breath. He was older now, no longer the young action hero they had first known, but the respect he commanded had only grown over the years. He made his way through the crowd, shaking hands, greeting old friends, and exchanging pleasantries. The whispers of admiration were everywhere. Everyone knew who he was, and his impact was undeniable. Yet, despite his undeniable success, Jackie still had a humble air about him, a quiet confidence that reflected the true nature of his character. But amidst all this glamour, something felt off. There was an undercurrent of tension in the air, a subtle discomfort that no one could quite put a finger on. Perhaps it was just the nerves that come with such a prestigious occasion. But as Jackie made his way toward the stage, the energy in the room shifted slightly. The host of the evening, a well-known TV personality with a reputation for sharp wit, stood waiting by the podium. They were a master of the art of ceremony, known for their ability to entertain and make the crowd laugh with their quick jokes and biting humor. But tonight, as they greeted Jackie with a handshake, their words seemed to carry a different tone, one that left the audience unsure of whether to laugh or cringe. The presenter, with a broad smile plastered on their face, gave a quick nod to Jackie before saying, "I didn't think you'd show up tonight. I mean, after all those old-school action films, I figured you'd be retired by now." The audience let out a nervous chuckle, unsure how to take the comment. The presenter clearly intended it to be funny, an attempt at humor to ease the formalities. But there was something in the way the words were spoken that stung. It wasn't just a light-hearted jab. It was an undercurrent of dismissal, as though Jackie's accomplishments were somehow outdated, as though he no longer belonged in the spotlight. Jackie, ever the professional, kept his smile intact. He had faced insults before. This was not the first time someone had made an offhand comment about his age, his background, or the fact that he was still performing at his age. But this This felt different. The look in the eyes of the presenter, the tone in their voice, it wasn't just a joke. It was a statement about what they thought of him. To them, Jackie was a relic, a remnant of a bygone era. The world had moved on, and he had been left behind. Despite the discomfort, Jackie kept walking to the stage, focusing on the award in front of him, determined to let the remark slide. But the weight of the moment lingered in the back of his mind. The room had become slightly tense, the laughter forced, the eyes of the audience now darting between Jackie and the presenter. It was a cruel reminder that, no matter how much someone achieved, the prejudices people harbored could still rear their ugly head in unexpected places. As Jackie reached the podium, the presenter's smile seemed a little more strained now. The crowd's energy had shifted, and the feeling of discomfort was palpable. Jackie took a deep breath, preparing to address the audience. But what happened next made the air in the room feel even heavier. The presenter, with a grin that didn't quite reach their eyes, announced, "And now, we're going to honor a legend, a man who has made a career out of kicking and punching his way into our hearts. If we're lucky, we'll see him move as fast as he did when he was young." The comment, spoken in jest, had more bite than anyone realized. The words stung not just because they highlighted Jackie's age, but because they reflected an outdated, stereotypical view of him. The audience, unsure whether to laugh or stay silent, looked at each other awkwardly. But Jackie didn't react outwardly, instead smiling politely, as if the remark didn't faze him. Inside, however, something shifted. Jackie's years of patience, his years of enduring disrespect because of his culture, his background, and his success in the West, had reached their limit. The moment of discomfort that had started earlier suddenly exploded into something more profound. Jackie Chan stood there at the podium, trying to keep his composure. But in that instant, he realized something. This was bigger than just him. It wasn't just a casual joke. It was a reminder of the subtle racism and biases that still existed, even in places where they should have been long gone. His thoughts raced for a moment. He had faced this kind of thing countless times in his career, being judged for his accent, being labeled as a kung fu star without recognition for his versatility as an actor, or his impact as a producer and director. But this was different. The joke was not about his martial arts or his past roles. It was about who he was, where he came from, and how he was seen as other. Jackie paused for a moment longer than necessary, his mind processing everything that had just happened. He could feel the eyes of the audience on him, waiting to see how he would react. The weight of the insult was clear, but so was the understanding that his response, his choice in this moment, would speak volumes. He took a deep breath, forcing the anger down, and in one fluid motion, Jackie reached for the microphone. It wasn't just to deliver a speech anymore. It was to speak on behalf of all those who had been silently oppressed by casual racism, who had been dismissed because of their background or appearance. Jackie wasn't just a fighter on screen. In this moment, he was fighting for something much bigger than himself. What came next would send shockwaves through the entertainment industry, and the world would not forget it. Jackie stood there, still gripping the microphone as the laughter of the audience echoed in the background. He could feel his pulse quickening, but he knew he had to remain composed. Every fiber of his being screamed to react, to lash out, to make a sharp, witty retort that would put the presenter in their place. But as he stood there, frozen in place, he realized that responding with anger would only perpetuate the cycle of disrespect he had spent his career trying to overcome. He had faced enough challenges in his life, racial prejudices, cultural misunderstandings, and countless obstacles that came with being an Asian actor in a predominantly Western industry. But this moment was different. It wasn't just about the joke. It was about the bigger picture. He glanced around the room, his eyes sweeping over the faces of the other celebrities, the audience members, and the cameras that were all pointing in his direction. Everyone was waiting for him to react. The room was filled with tension, the kind of uncomfortable stillness that made the air feel thick. But Jackie Chan wasn't just any actor. He was a legend, a man whose life and career had been built on more than just physical strength and martial arts skills. Jackie had always prided himself on his integrity, his ability to rise above the trivialities, and to turn difficult situations into opportunities for growth and understanding. But this was different. His mind raced, searching for a way to respond that would not only address the insult, but also send a powerful message. Jackie realized that this was an opportunity, not just for him, but for everyone who had ever felt marginalized, overlooked, or judged based on their age, race, or background. The stakes were higher now. This wasn't just a moment of personal humiliation. It was a moment for all of them, for anyone who had been made to feel inferior because they didn't fit into society's narrow view of what mattered. For a brief moment, Jackie closed his eyes. The hum of the room faded into the background, and all he could hear was the rhythm of his own heartbeat. The memories of his childhood in Hong Kong, the struggles of breaking into an industry that didn't understand him, the discrimination he had faced as he made his way to stardom. These memories filled him, grounding him in this moment of truth. He had come a long way from the boy who was told he would never succeed. Finally, he took a deep breath and stepped forward, his gaze sharp and unwavering, as he looked directly into the camera. "I have spent my entire career fighting for respect," Jackie said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "But not just for myself, no. This fight is for everyone who has ever been underestimated, marginalized, or reduced to a stereotype because of their race, their background, or their appearance. I've worked my whole life to break barriers, to show that we can all be more than what people expect of us." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle into the audience. What happened here tonight was a reminder of how far we still have to go. He felt the room fall completely silent as the audience processed what he had just said. There was no laughter now, no awkward shifting in their seats. Jackie's words had cut through the noise, and for the first time that evening, the crowd was listening. His expression softened slightly as he continued. "We all have our stories, our struggles, and our dreams. But the thing I've learned over the years is that no matter where you come from, or what you look like, or how old you are, your value isn't determined by those who try to tear you down." Jackie's voice began to rise, not with anger, but with the kind of passion that could only come from someone who had lived through both the highs and the lows of life. "I've been called all sorts of things. Too old, too foreign, too different. But I've also received love from people around the world. Because when we look beyond the surface, we see that we are all human. We all deserve respect. We all deserve to be seen for who we truly are." His words hung in the air, and for a moment, it felt as though time had stopped. The presenter, standing at the side, was visibly shaken. They had never anticipated a response like this. They had expected a joke or a quick rebuttal, not a powerful speech that would challenge the very foundations of the industry they represented. The apology they had prepared seemed inadequate now, as if it could never undo the harm that had already been done. They were forced to stand silently, watching as Jackie continued to hold the room's attention. Backstage, chaos had already erupted. The producer was frantically making phone calls, and other crew members scrambled to respond to the fallout. The tension that had been building all night had now reached its peak, and there was no escaping it. Some of the staff members were genuinely concerned for Jackie, wanting to rush to his side and offer comfort. Others were focused on the damage control, worried about how the show's reputation would be affected. But through all the commotion, one thing was clear. Jackie Chan had made a stand that could not be ignored. His message had reverberated far beyond the walls of the awards hall, As the cameras kept rolling, the world was watching, and they weren't about to look away. Within minutes, social media exploded. Clips of Jackie's impassioned speech spread like wildfire across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Hashtags like Jackie Chan speaks out, respect matters, and end racism trended worldwide. Celebrities and fans alike took to their platforms, sharing their support for Jackie and condemning the behavior of the presenter. The public outcry was deafening, but so was the praise. Across the globe, people began to reflect on their own biases, on the moments when they had let casual racism slip by unnoticed, or when they had stood silently in the face of injustice. Jackie's bravery had ignited something deep within them, a call to action, a desire to make the world a better, more inclusive place. As Jackie left the stage, the presenter approached him, their face filled with regret. "Jackie, I'm so sorry," they stammered. "I never meant for it to come out that way." Jackie looked at them with calm, composed eyes. "I know you didn't. But it's important that we learn from these moments. We have to hold ourselves accountable for our words and actions. Apologies are a start, but true change comes when we do better, not just talk about it." The presenter nodded, their head hanging low. They realized that Jackie had done something far more important than just call out their behavior. He had given them the chance to reflect, to grow, and to understand that racism, no matter how subtle, has consequences. The next day, the presenter issued a public apology, acknowledging the hurt they had caused and vowing to do better in the future. But even that felt like an afterthought compared to the massive shift that had already begun. People were no longer willing to tolerate discrimination, no longer willing to accept casual racism as the norm. Jackie's words had opened the door for change, and there was no closing it now. The message was clear. Racism, whether overt or subtle, would no longer be allowed to thrive in silence. And Jackie Chan, the man who had spent his life defying the odds, had once again proven that his strength wasn't just in his martial arts moves. It was in his unwavering commitment to doing what was right, no matter the cost. The impact of Jackie's words was instantaneous. As soon as his speech ended, the room was engulfed in an eerie silence. For a moment, it seemed like time itself had frozen. No one spoke. No one moved. The atmosphere was thick with the weight of what had just transpired. Jackie had taken an ugly, uncomfortable moment and turned it into a powerful statement, one that resonated far beyond the walls of the awards show. The air was charged with a mix of disbelief and awe. People slowly began to absorb what had happened. What Jackie had done wasn't just a moment of personal vindication, it was a reckoning. The force of his speech hit like a tidal wave, crashing against the comfortable assumptions that people often held about race, identity, and respect. The audience, previously caught up in the awkwardness of the situation, now felt the gravity of the words that had just been spoken. This wasn't just about a poorly timed joke from a presenter. It was about a culture of casual racism that had been allowed to persist unchecked, even in the most high-profile spaces. Before the broadcast could even go to a commercial break, social media had exploded. Videos of Jackie's speech were already going viral. Within minutes, hashtags like #Jackie Chan speaks out and #End racism began trending on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Celebrities, influencers, and fans alike flooded their social media accounts with messages of support for Jackie. What had started as a single insult in a prestigious venue had quickly transformed into a global conversation. People from all walks of life, many of whom had never given much thought to the racial dynamics in the entertainment industry, found themselves reflecting on the deep-seated biases that often went unnoticed in everyday life. But while Jackie's words had ignited an important discussion, they had also provoked a strong backlash. In the hours following the broadcast, some voices began to speak out in defense of the presenter, claiming that the comment had been intended as a harmless joke. It was just a light-hearted remark, nothing more, some critics argued. They downplayed the incident, suggesting that Jackie was overreacting. This, of course, only fueled the flames. As more people joined the conversation, the debate over whether the comment was truly racist or simply a misstep became a battleground for larger issues of race and power. But despite the pushback, one thing remained undeniable. Jackie had forced the industry and the world to confront uncomfortable truths. The backlash was especially palpable within Hollywood. Celebrities, agents, and producers had always danced around the issue of race, carefully tiptoeing around moments of racial tension in a way that kept things comfortable. But now, with Jackie's speech hanging in the air like a challenge, the industry couldn't ignore the issue any longer. The loudest voices came from within the Asian community, who had long suffered from being relegated to stereotypes, tokenism, and marginalization. Jackie had spoken for them, and his courage to stand up had emboldened others to do the same. It was as though Jackie had cracked open a door, and now everyone wanted to step through it. The silence that had once been pervasive was now being shattered. The producer of the awards show, who had been scrambling behind the scenes in the wake of the incident, was now faced with an entirely new set of problems. They had spent the entire evening trying to maintain a polished image for the show, but Jackie had exposed the raw, ugly reality that lay beneath the surface. The producer quickly issued a statement, apologizing for the incident, but the words felt hollow. Apologies in such a high-profile moment often do. People didn't just want empty words, they wanted change, they wanted accountability. And at that moment, it was clear that no amount of backtracking could undo the damage. The show's reputation had taken a hit, but the bigger issue was the public's shift in awareness. There was no going back to the way things were before. What happened next was a series of ripple effects. The following day, talk shows, news outlets, and social media platforms were all abuzz with discussions about what Jackie had said. Some hosts, initially unsure of where to stand, took the opportunity to publicly side with Jackie, calling out the systemic racism that had been allowed to flourish unchecked in entertainment. Others were more cautious, taking the time to deliberate before offering their opinions. But despite the varying reactions, one thing was clear. Jackie's message had resonated on a deep, personal level for people around the world. In the days that followed, more and more celebrities began to speak out. A-list actors, directors, and producers, many of whom had spent years in the industry, silently complicit in the biases that Jackie had called out, began to issue statements, acknowledging the shortcomings of the entertainment world. They admitted that they had seen the microaggressions, the casual racism, the lack of representation, but had remained silent for fear of upsetting the status quo. Jackie had forced them to confront their own complacency. The most surprising response came from the presenter, who had made the initial remark. In a tearful interview, they apologized profusely for the hurt they had caused. "I never intended to hurt Jackie or anyone else," they said, their voice trembling. "But I understand now that my words were thoughtless, and I can see how they perpetuate harmful stereotypes. I was wrong, and I will do better." It was a raw, unpolished apology, but it was sincere. While many were quick to accept the apology, others were less forgiving. They argued that the damage had already been done, that words like the ones spoken on that stage couldn't be erased with a simple admission of guilt. And yet, despite the criticism, there was a glimmer of hope that change might finally be on the horizon. The conversation that Jackie had sparked was far from over. It had just begun. As weeks went by, the conversation continued to unfold, reverberating through the corridors of Hollywood and beyond. More voices began to emerge, voices that had been silenced for too long. Asian actors, filmmakers, and producers began to call for more representation, more opportunities, and more respect, in an industry that had long marginalized them. Jackie's speech had become a rallying cry, a symbol of the fight for dignity, equality, and recognition in the face of years of neglect. But even as the public outcry continued, Jackie remained humble. He was never one to seek the spotlight for himself. For him, this wasn't about revenge or proving a point. It was about making the world a better place. It was about using his platform to stand up for what was right, and in doing so, inspiring others to do the same. As the dust settled, Jackie quietly returned to his life and work, but the impact of his actions lingered. His words had sparked something in the hearts of millions, and the world was slowly, but surely, beginning to change. The entertainment industry would never be the same again. The conversation that Jackie had started was continuing, growing louder with each passing day. The time for silence was over, and Jackie had made sure of it. As the dust from the initial shockwaves of Jackie's speech settled, something remarkable began to happen. What started as a single act of defiance against a racial slight transformed into a global movement, sparking conversations far beyond the entertainment industry. People across the world began to reflect on their own experiences, their own struggles with prejudice and discrimination, and they started to ask themselves the difficult questions that Jackie had raised. For too long, the world had been content to ignore the subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, racism that permeated all aspects of life. It had become so ingrained in everyday interactions, in media portrayals, in jokes passed off as harmless, that many hadn't even realized the toll it took. Jackie had pulled back the curtain, exposing the deep-seated biases that affected everyone, regardless of their race, and called on all of us to confront those uncomfortable truths. It was a moment of awakening, not just for the entertainment industry, but for society at large. His words, which were initially aimed at addressing the disrespect he had personally faced, had begun to resonate with so many who had silently endured the same. In the weeks following the awards show, the dialogue about race in Hollywood began to shift. Filmmakers, actors, and industry leaders began to acknowledge the disparities in representation, opportunities, and pay. The Me Too movement had already shaken up the industry in terms of gender inequality, but Jackie's courage had sparked a parallel conversation about race, leading to calls for more diverse voices and stories in front of and behind the camera. In an industry that was once predominantly white, Asian representation was now an issue at the forefront, with Jackie Chan's actions providing the catalyst for a much-needed change. More importantly, Jackie's stand wasn't just about improving the entertainment world. It was a call to action for everyday people. His words echoed in homes, schools, and workplaces, encouraging individuals to speak out against racism, to stand up for those who are marginalized, and to acknowledge the quiet prejudices that often go unnoticed. It wasn't enough to simply say we weren't racist. We had to actively fight against racism in all its forms. The story of one man who had made his mark on the world of cinema became a powerful symbol of resilience and determination for those fighting their own battles against the systems that sought to keep them in the shadows. But while the conversation was progressing, Jackie himself remained humble and focused on his true purpose. For him, it had never been about the fame or the applause. It had always been about the bigger picture. Throughout his career, he had used his platform to uplift others, to bring cultures together through his films, and to show that strength doesn't just come from physical power, but from integrity, compassion, and courage. He didn't need to be hailed as a hero. His actions had already done that. What mattered most to him was that his words had sparked a change that would affect generations to come. As the months went by, the shift in the entertainment industry became more apparent. Casting directors, once hesitant to cast Asian actors in leading roles, now sought out diverse talents. Film studios began to rethink their approach to storytelling, focusing on narratives that were inclusive, authentic, and reflective of a global audience. Jackie Chan had not only challenged the status quo, but he had also shown that one voice, one act of courage, could inspire real change. This wasn't just a moment in time. It was the beginning of a movement that would continue to push for equality and fairness, not only in Hollywood, but in every corner of the world. Jackie's message of love, respect, and understanding resonated with people from all walks of life, transcending borders, languages, and cultures. What Jackie had started was a ripple effect that would only continue to grow. And that ripple was powerful enough to create a wave of change. As the world began to shift, Jackie's actions continued to inspire others to find their voice and stand up for what was right. But the journey wasn't over. There were still battles to fight, still injustices to correct, and still hearts and minds to change. Jackie Chan had shown that even in the face of adversity, it's possible to stand tall, to speak your truth, and to create a better world for those who will come after us. Now, it's your turn. What will you do when you see injustice? How will you use your voice to make the world a better place? Don't let this be just another story you hear and forget. Take action. Jackie Chan's courage should inspire us all to fight for equality and to lift each other up, no matter where we come from or what we look like. Leave a comment below and let us know. What will you do to make a difference?